The following content is not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.
Be true to finding your purpose and passion early and hold on to that dearly. With that, you have clarity in what you want to achieve. It's one of the critical things that we can do, and that is strengthening our economy, strengthening our communities by investing in businesses, by investing in people, creating greater opportunity and greater access. It is the passion for serving others, and when I look at the end of my life, whenever that will be, is what did I do to make this world a better place?
Hey, I'm Ross Mack, and welcome to Financial Freestyle. Look, whether you're a professional on Wall Street, a first-time investor, or just someone looking to change their overall financial situation, there's always a first step that you got to take. And look no further, because I'm going to be talking to some of the most influential voices in my universe and ask them how they got to where they are now. Today, I'm joined with Sekou Kaalund, Head of Branch and Small Business Banking at U.S. Bank. Sekou, thanks so much for being here, dog.
It's my pleasure. Great to be here.
So to the people that are watching at home, what would you say your origin story is? Who is Sekou?
So my origin story, I would say I've always been anchored on service. So at 5 years old, I grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina. You talk to anyone that knew me, they would say I wanted to be a U.S. Senator. And I wanted to be a U.S. Senator because I wanted to help create laws that impacted poor communities. And I think as I navigated my career, I realized there were multiple ways to do that. And so I think that would be the first lesson I would leave with people, that some of these career pathways aren't straight. The more you're exposed to, you realize that there may be a multitude of ways to accomplish what you desire.
I think at the age of 5, for me, I was pretty much blinded and thought that I was going to grow to be 6'7" and play in the NBA. So I love that you were saying that, I want to go into service and actually help people. And I think that goes, and it segues to our next point, because where you are in your career, you've always wanted to help people. So how would you say you've leveraged your leadership roles at your companies to actually have some type of meaningful change in the community?
I think it's important to always be anchored on your why and purpose, because no matter what platform you're on, you could be consistent to who you are and what it is you're meant to achieve on this earth. And so for me, no matter what business I was in, I still had to understand what I needed to deliver for the business, but it did not mean that I would ignore how I can make a difference. So I would bring that spirit to whatever I was doing. I could think about how we help clients, but simultaneously how we support communities, how we do more, how we leverage a balance sheet, how we think differently about the ways to create more opportunity. So yes, I've always looked for that opportunity to learn. Day one, you have to understand wherever you are. You don't just show up and say, okay, now it's time for me to change the world. So you do have to put in the effort to learn, then to better understand how you can drive the impact you want within the company you're working for.
When you were at JP, you led something called Advancing Black Pathways. And at that time, it was one of the first global initiatives. Let's talk about that. And I definitely want to get a sense of what you're working on now as well.
My parents were business owners, and they had their business fail because of a lack of access to capital. So as a result, I remember freshman year, I worked 2 jobs, 35 hours a week during the school week, 80 hours a week during the summers. I was class president, and that gave me...
No small feat. Class president, worked 12 jobs.
Yeah, 12 jobs, but it taught me about the importance of opportunity, right? And I think about my parents' business, if they were able to get the capital they needed, how that could have navigated for them, for us, et cetera. But it was the experience that I had and exposure, whether it's my personal experience or friends, that I realized there's a significant opportunity that finance can play in terms of investing in the future for communities, for the country. And so that's where I informed myself of the job to be done. So I started my career as a regulator to understand banking. Then I worked at Citi, and then, as you point out, 15 years at JP Morgan. But the point was I covered every type of business, every client type, different functions and roles, and that really equipped me with great experience on how you build a business, how you work across a firm. And so in launching an effort, I really leveraged my work experience to understand how you best deploy resources to create the impact that you want. I think the biggest thing you have to do is recognize what is it that you are trying to achieve, right? And sometimes remove yourself from the equation. It's just sometimes hard to do because we want to be owners of our work, but the reality is if you don't get people to buy in and come along with you on the journey, there's less that you can get done, and it most likely won't be sustained. So it's really, how do you create an ecosystem of people who are willing to help drive the progress that you believe is possible?
What you're doing is so necessary, right? Because I think when you think about enacting change, you can have an idea, right? You can go out and advocate for it, but I think when you're in a position where capital is being deployed, right? When you're in a position to control capital, you actually have a much stronger opportunity to actually enact change. And I know, you guys deployed a decent amount of capital when you were there, but you're doing something very similar now in your new role at U.S. Bank. Can we segue in and talk about that?
Yeah, so really excited to be at U.S. Bank. I think one of the key things that attracted me is that it's a purpose-driven organization. When I turn on my computer or any of our 13,000 employees, we have 70,000, but I lead 13,000 employees, their screen says the same thing. We invest our hearts and minds to power human potential. And that just recognizes that you can impact communities, that you can impact consumers, but you can also be business savvy. And so what we're doing is, again, some of this stuff, they even started before I came, but a couple things I'm proud of, launching similar initiatives, a diversity business lending initiative, again, to support those deserving entrepreneurs. But not only with capital, we also have these business access advisors who will just help business owners who didn't go into business to say, oh, I want to work with a bank. They went into business because they were passionate about an idea, a solution that could help their community, a marketplace opportunity. So by providing these businesses with advice and insights, it can help them learn the banking aspects that will be critical for the viability and growth of their business.
How are you getting 13,000 people? That's not small. 13,000 people to buy into your vision.
It was important for me to recognize that I don't have all the answers. Yes, I have tremendous experience on Wall Street, but I was joining a new firm and I have branches in 26 states. And so I visited many states to understand what were the things that were working incredibly well, where can I leverage my role, my skills to help continue to support our bankers and ultimately our clients. And so I think that was important to really be able to define what I could do, how I would leverage my time, as I consider myself the chief advocate of our employees and of our customers. So how could I create an agenda that enabled us to do more of what we do best, and that is serve our clients and communities. And so I think you have to be visible, you have to be present. I'm very intentional on how I communicate every week to 13,000 employees. And because it's a unique opportunity to continue to influence and shape how we show up in communities, how we show up for clients. And so I'm excited. I feel, as I go back to my younger self, this is making a difference. When you think about 10 million clients and 13,000 employees, this is how you can make a difference with intentionality and purpose.
The average person at the age of 5 is playing, either video games or playing outside.
It was a good nap time, and I woke up enlightened.
But let's talk about that enlightenment, because I know what my why is, right? I know why I am so dedicated to Maconomics, and there's so many commonalities when it comes to bridging the wealth gap, bridging the education gap, and things of that sort. So what's your why? Like, what gets you excited every day when you're waking up now?
It is the passion for serving others. And when I look at the end of my life, whenever that will be, is what did I do to make this world a better place? What did I do to inculcate some of these same values in our 3 wonderful children? So that is my measuring stick. But I will say at the same time, your why, every day you don't skip into any job or any platform and you're doing 100% of your why. So recognize that sometimes there is work to be done, and that is part of the journey. I don't want people to get discouraged because sometimes they feel like, am I living my why? Because today I was modeling in spreadsheets or I was doing X, Y, Z, and understand that this is a process and a journey. So as it relates to me, I also had to realize that you have to be adaptable and flexible. What do I mean by that? My early internships, outside of participating in Inroads, and that was my first corporate internship, was I interned in the White House, in the Department of Treasury, and HUD. I was still anchored on this notion that the only way to make a difference was through public service or government. It wasn't until I was exposed to more. In graduate school, I won this national business commentary sponsored by the Executive Leadership Council, which is all of the senior African Americans in corporations. And that's where I realized that there were people running large businesses, leading large teams that could influence how capital was deployed. And so that's where your anchoring on your why matters, because then if I'm flexible to understand that there are a multitude of ways to achieve that objective, then I can make the moves that are necessary at those right times.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, listen, guys, stick with us. You're going to have more Financial Freestyle after this. Welcome back to Financial Freestyle, and I'm still here with Sekou Kaalund, Head of Branch and Small Business Banking at U.S. Bank. Sekou, I'm obviously still inspired by everything you're saying.
Thank you.
And I love the roles that you've been in because you've been very unintentional about helping that underserved community, right? Whether it was at JP with advancing Black Pathways, and now where you're at U.S. Bank. And so I just got a question, right? Obviously, you guys, you've really, spearheaded some amazing initiatives, but when you look at the country as a whole, right? I saw a few studies, right? One just came out that said the median net worth of Black family in Chicago is zero, and national, by the year 2053, the median net worth would be zero as well. And so when you think about ways of, bridging the wealth gap in this country, what does it take?
I think it's recognizing that making the economy work for more people is not only a moral obligation, but a business imperative. So if you think about growth, there was another study that was done by Citigroup a couple years ago talking about the $20 trillion impact that discrimination or not actively engaging everyone in the populace is having on the economy. So when we think about the impact that could be had, that means we're growing if we're investing in these communities that typically don't get investment. And so where it's a business imperative, whether it's consumers or small business, let's stick with small business. There are 33 million small businesses in this country. Small businesses are the growth engine of our entire economy. So any decade you look at, net new job creation isn't from the large corporates, it's from small business. And so then if we look at who's forming small businesses and how capital does and doesn't flow, it points to how we have an opportunity to create jobs, to strengthen communities when we invest more broadly across communities. And so I think it's one of the critical things that we can do, and that is strengthening our economy, strengthening our communities by investing in businesses, by investing in people, and creating greater opportunity and greater access.
I love that because I know, and I don't have the stats right off back, but the average small business is failing within like the first 3 to 5 years, right? Is that, would you say that's a function of lack of access to capital, or just not understanding, the correct way to think about business, whether it's marketing or having an effective business plan? What would you say that reason?
So again, you will have small businesses, fail, but at the same time, I think the bigger point is how do you ensure that they have access to some of the insights that will help them on their journey, right? How do you ensure that, let's say, if I'm launching my business, that I'm not commingling my personal and business accounts, because then when I need to get a loan or credit, it's hard for someone to underwrite because they can't understand which is which. So for me, the focus is, and this is why we have our business access advisors that we've launched across a few states, but how do you support small businesses on their journey with resources? How do you ensure, whether it's what the SBA, Small Business Administration, does, whether it's other nonprofits, how do you ensure that people have access to those resources that will help them earlier on their journey? But small business, like I said, most large businesses started as small businesses, right? And so there's been proven way of wealth creation through entrepreneurship in this country.
I love it. I love that, man. And so obviously I know a little bit about you and your family. Congrats. Your son is getting ready to go to Morehouse.
Yes, indeed. Very excited.
I had the opportunity to have lunch with you guys, getting some deep dish pizza in Chicago. So I'm thinking about that, and now that I'm a dad, father of 3, I always say, what would I tell my younger self? And obviously you're living in your purpose, and you have your kids and they're walking in their purpose as well, but I always go back to that 5-year-old version of you. One, what are you telling that 5-year-old? You know, everything, are you saying, hey, you know, everything you wanted to do, I'm doing it? And more importantly, for the people listening, what advice would you give to a typical, you know, younger version of yourself?
Yeah, so I'll start with the advice piece, and that would be that pathways aren't always straight. And that's why it's important to be anchored on intentionality and purpose, right? If I started my journey, would I say I'm not a success because I'm not in an elective office, or would I say I've been able to drive impact at scale? And I feel great about that. Obviously, it would be the latter. So recognizing that it's your purpose and intention that will help you navigate when it's a tough journey, right? Every day of life isn't going to bring smiles and high fives, right? And the only thing that will propel you, whether you're a professional or business owner, is that passion for what you're doing. It doesn't make it easier. Let's be very clear. It just makes it easier to navigate the difficulty that comes, right? And so that's why I would tell my younger self, be true to finding your purpose and passion early and hold on to that dearly, because with that, you have clarity in what you want to achieve. In terms of what I would look back and I want to continue to contribute at scale. So by no stretch am I doing any victory laps. I feel like there's a lot. I'm fortunate. If you told me I would be one of the leaders of the now consumer and business banking for the 5th largest bank in the country, I would have been like, I barely know banking. What are you talking about, right? And so that gives me optimism. And it also reaffirms that when we provide opportunity, it's hard to be what you can't see, but when you do provide the opportunity, the sky is the limit. And so that's what excites me, that how many people like me that didn't know Wall Street, that couldn't tell you what stocks are, that couldn't any of that, that I could be in a position that I can influence and impact millions.
When you think about, you know, just kind of staying the course and, you know, keeping those horse blinders on, we're in different times, right? You think about social media, right? Like when you're talking to your child and it's like, look, man, after you just keep your head down at school, but he might turn on, you know, or log on to whether it's TikTok, Instagram, and he's seeing kids either his age or even younger making a ton of money just on YouTube or dancing on TikTok, making money. And so when you think about, you know, a person walking in their purpose, like what advice are you giving them to say, look, don't worry about the noise, right? Like you were saying, like, it's not just a straight path, but it's so many other outside influences that make a person need instant gratification.
Yes, and you're right. That's what they're growing up with. I will say that same challenge before TikTok was created still existed. And so that's why it's important to have accountability partners, whether it's mentors, whether it's peer mentors, whether it's friends that help you stay consistent on your journey. I'll give a quick story. I was at the Federal Reserve, was going to take a new job for more money. I would meet with mentors and tell them, here's my plan, here are my goals. And so one person called me out and they said, Sekou, how is that consistent with anything that you've told me over the last year? The reality was, it wasn't. That it was more money and what I thought was a fancier title. But had I walked through that door, we wouldn't be sitting here now, right? I had someone to push me to not be so short-term thinking, to sacrifice my long-term success because I was going to chase more money. Now, money does matter in the extreme for sure, but if that's your guiding principle, you can often make decisions that will take you down the path that you're not meant to be, or it doesn't give you the fulfillment that you thought you would have. So you buy your new car or you get the big paycheck. If you hate what you do and you don't like just looking at your bank statement, you're still miserable, right? And so those are the things where you need to keep that clarity in. And it's hard to do by yourself in the instant gratification world that we live in. That's why you need accountability partners. You need to talk to people and have those real discussions.
That's good advice because, you know, when you're talking to younger kids, it's, you know, you turn on social media, everybody appears to have a lot of money, right? When the facts are saying half of Americans don't have $1,000 saved, but you go on social media, it appears everybody and their auntie are rich, right? They got every designer, this and that, and so I find that to be, you know, enlightening, keeping an accountability partner. Right now, you know, we got this amazing segment called Dear Mac, and I love it because you get to actually talk to the people and get a sense of what they want to know. And it's kind of geared towards personal finance. So my question to you would be, and I've been getting this question a lot, but what are the 3 tips that you would give advice to just the average person when it comes to personal finance?
It's a great question. Let's stay with this theme on money. So when it comes to money, you got to think about it. It's not what you make, it's what you keep and grow. So if you have that headset that you can make money,
it's what you keep and
but
grow.
if you're not keeping money and growing it, then you probably don't have a financial plan that is aligned to your goals that then governs how you operate. It's easier to say, I may not buy this now because it's not aligned with my plan. So I think having the same discipline around, and you don't have to do it yourself. There are tools, banks have tools, there are a wide array, there are fintechs, there are tools out there, right, that will help you really set a tone and a plan and put that into motion. Because a lot of people, they could give you examples if you start investing, the power of compounding at 20 versus 30, et cetera. The one thing I will say, though, that just having that clarity and recognizing that perhaps, yes, you may invest, but if you have a lot of debt, maybe you want to build reserves so you have emergency fund, maybe you want to pay down debt. So it's not just one thing. That's, if someone just says invest, you have to understand where you are financially, and then you could determine what's the best ratio for you to accomplish some of those goals.
I love that, because how much you keep and grow, that's the most important thing, right? It's not how much you make sometimes, it's how much you save.
Yes.
It's how much, right? Like the easiest way to get a raise isn't walking into your boss's office saying, hey, kid, listen, I've been doing X, Y, Z, I think I deserve a raise. The easiest way to make more money is to spend less.
Yeah.
And I think that the vast majority of Americans have a spending problem. And I love that idea when you were saying the power of compounding from whether 20 or 30. The one thing I'm most excited about is the fact that my children are all invested now.
Yes.
So that idea of compounding, by the time they're my age, they would have been in the market since, inception almost, since they turned one.
They'll be hearing Dad say, y'all ready to learn something? Right, and that is important, right? Because my generation, if your family was talking about money, you knew to exit the room, or maybe you would be exited with a little backhand. Just joking, Mama, just joking. But the point was, we didn't talk about money. Whereas same thing, my son has been trading since 9th grade. He makes his own decisions on what ETFs. Obviously, he'll get some type of consultation, but that is half the battle, right? That when you expose people early on, even if they don't have the money to invest, even if they're only tracking, on a website, it shifts the mentality, right? And so not only what I'm buying, but when I have it, what will I grow? Like, how will I impact my financial future to build wealth, right? And so, I still, the only thing I'll leave, wealth is holistic, right? So health as well, right?
Absolutely.
If you have all the money in the world and bad health, then it doesn't do much for you. So we have to think broadly about these life goals, and that's why the accountability partner, being anchored on your purpose and valuing what's around you. And for you and for me, my biggest asset are my family, my wife, who I wouldn't be here without because she's coaching me, and my 3 wonderful kids.
Well, listen, man, I can't say thanks enough. Thank you so much to Sekou Kaalund for sharing his story with us. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today on Financial Freestyle. Look, I hope we gave you guys some insightful information and some inspiration for you on your own wealth creation journey. And look, it's your boy, Ross Mack. Make sure that you come back next week. We got you covered. Let's remember to always build wealth together.
This content was not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.